Have you ever been in a conversation where, despite saying everything you wanted, you still walked away feeling defeated? Have you noticed that tightness in your throat, as if every word you spoke pushed you further from your own confidence? Maybe you're surrounded by people who speak loudly, interrupt, mock, and fill the room with arrogance masked as confidence. And perhaps deep down, you've believed that staying quiet means weakness, that not standing up for yourself means surrender, and not responding means losing. But what if I told you this is all just an illusion? That real strength has never come from speaking, but from choosing silence instead. One of history's most misunderstood thinkers, noticed something few dare to admit. Those who talk too much often reveal too much. Those who feel the need to convince others are already at a disadvantage. Society teaches us to fight, explain, and defend our ideas, as if every discussion is a battle for the truth. But nature suggests a different path, one that is more subtle, more powerful, and far wiser. Ens believed silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a force that unsettles and shakes the other person. Silence makes people face themselves. This message is for you, the one who feels ignored, overshadowed, or dismissed. For the person who leaves conversations thinking no one really understood what you meant. For those tired of being the easy target, the nice one who keeps the peace while others take advantage of your calm. Maybe you've mistaken silence for giving in, but today I want to show you that silence can be your greatest strength. True victory isn't about winning an argument. It's about never having to engage in one at all. Get ready to see silence differently, not as a lack of response, but as the most powerful reply. Let's explore nature's wisdom and learn how to handle any situation without saying a word. Why do we feel compelled to respond, argue back, and prove we're right? Because we've been taught that truth must be defended fiercely. That if we stay silent, others win. But nature sees this as a sign of our deepest weakness, fear of seeming weak. Behind that fear is the ego, a fragile ego that can't handle being challenged, mistakes disagreement for attack, and turns every talk into a fight. Said most people don't argue to find the truth. They argue to gain power. They fight to protect their beliefs, not because those beliefs are strong, but because if they're shaken, argumentation in this context is not a sign of wisdom. Instead, it acts as a shield, a desperate plea from the ego to keep control over the story being told. What does this imply? When you feel the urge to defend yourself or prove your point, you've already fallen into their trap and lost. That urge to justify your stance reveals that you're still caught up in the need to be accepted, validated, or understood. This is what nature calls herd morality. The behavior of those who live by others' expectations, striving to be seen as good, right, or just. But this search for approval is what actually weakens you. True strength, nature teaches, doesn't come from persuading others, but from not needing to do so. It's about holding on to your vision, even when faced with ridicule, criticism, or rejection. It's about staying firm when misunderstood. What is suggested here is a kind of power that isn't measured by winning arguments, but by mastering yourself internally, a power that lets you stay calm while everyone else loses control. This power grows the moment you stop reacting. If you really want to succeed, you need to understand this. The discussion is a stage, and the first one to stand and act has already lost. NZ understood that a reactive mind is a mind in captivity. The observing mind is the truly powerful one because it rises above the need to prove anything. But if we shouldn't react, how do we show strength to others? If words can betray us, how do we make others feel our power without saying a single thing? Nature had an answer for that, found in the idea of the Übermensch, the being who rises above common morality and controls the world through total self-discipline. In the next segment, we'll dive into this figure and see how silence becomes a powerful tool of dominance. Ready to reach this next level? Because from now on, silence starts to speak. If this message resonates with you, hit the subscribe button and support the channel. Thanks for being here. Nature didn't write for the weak. He wrote for those few brave enough to look inside, face their pain, and turn it into strength. To him, most people are trapped by rules, moral codes, and the need for approval. But there is another kind of person, rare, dangerous, free, the Übermensch, or overman. This person doesn't react to the world, they shape it in their own way, and most strikingly, they often do this without a word. The Übermensch doesn't need to win arguments or play emotional games. They watch, understand, and decide carefully when to speak. And more importantly, when to stay silent. They grasp something many overlook. Silence is a form of language. It doesn't try to convince, it demands attention. The Übermensch's silence is not empty. It's a threat, a sign of authority, a mark of self-control. While others shout, they command respect with just a look. While others explain, they quietly observe and expose weaknesses. Their silence is a barrier. Those on the other side grow anxious, trying to figure out what's behind it. In their confusion, they slip up, reveal too much, lose their composure. This silence isn't passivity, it's complete control of one's energy, a smart use of restraint. The Übermensch knows every word spoken reveals a strategy. Every emotional outburst shows a weakness. So they stay quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they don't need to say anything. They've moved beyond proving themselves. Their presence alone speaks and unsettles, because their silence forces others to face their own inner chaos. In a noisy world, those who master silence hold the true power. Nietzsche saw the Übermensch as a creator of their own values, rules, and morals. They don't rely on anyone else's approval, and that's why they're feared. Nothing shakes people more than someone who can't be controlled by guilt, fear, or the desire to be accepted. Their silence shields them from these forces, and when they do speak, their words can topple empires. But this leads to an important question. Why does silence unsettle others so deeply? Why do people feel threatened when someone simply chooses not to react? What happens in the mind when the expected confrontation is replaced by a powerful absence? The answer lies in psychology. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. To truly grasp the power of silence, we first need to understand the confusion silence can create in others' minds, and believe me, it goes much deeper than it appears. Silence isn't just the lack of sound, it acts like a mirror. For many, what it reveals is unbearable. When you choose not to respond, you're not just quieting yourself, you're forcing the other person to listen to their own voice. They must face their own arguments without any external pushback, which unsettles them. Most people don't speak to share their true thoughts. They speak to protect themselves, to convince themselves, or to hide the gap between their words and who they really are. When you stay silent, that mask falls away. Research in social psychology shows that in tense situations, silence is often seen as a form of judgment. Even if you're simply listening, the speaker starts feeling vulnerable and unsure. Why? Because without your reply or reaction, they lose control of the conversation. This triggers the brain's alarm system, the amygdala, activating fear and anxiety. The person begins projecting their own worries onto you. Is he judging me? Did he notice my insecurity? Does he see through my bluff? In this mental struggle, silence works like an unseen weapon. It cuts deeply where no one can see, but everyone senses. Philosophers like Nietzsche understood this long before psychology did. Most people are slaves to their reactions. They act on impulse, speak out of vanity or fear of being ignored. But the wise and self-controlled choose silence, knowing that every word shared is a potential weakness handed to their opponent. Every emotional response is an unintentional signal that shows where they can be attacked. Silence is especially powerful against manipulators who depend on others' emotional reactions to maintain control. When you don't respond, you break their hold and cause panic. They rely on your reaction to confirm their power. Without it, they lose their grip, reveal their true selves, and expose the weaknesses they try so hard to hide. There's an even deeper effect. Silence stirs up old wounds. Pain from rejection, abandonment, humiliation, because suddenly the other person realizes they're not the center of attention. Their words aren't enough, and their presence doesn't have the impact they expected. This is unbearable for a narcissistic ego. So when you stay silent, you're not just defending yourself, you're striking at the heart of their illusion. That's why silence demands strength. It's uncomfortable not only for others, but for you as well, because it goes against everything we've been taught, resisting the urge to react, to justify, to explain ourselves. Yet that's exactly why silence is so powerful. It demands self-control, and true power lies in control. Now that you understand how silence works in someone else's mind, how it stirs insecurity, breaks down defenses, and reveals true intentions, it's time to move beyond just watching. It's time to intentionally and strategically use this strength. In the next section, you'll learn how to turn silence into a deliberate tool, a way to win arguments without uttering a single word. Once you master this skill, no one will be able to manipulate you. It's time to stop only recognizing silence is power and start applying it. After all, knowledge without action is just theory. From here on, you'll learn to shape your silence into a precise weapon, not just a shield, but a sharp blade that cuts through others' facades when they least expect it. The first step is simple yet tough. Stay silent when your instinct screams for a response. This takes real strength because every part of you will want to react, justify, or prove you're right. But that urge is toxic. Giving in means you're still controlled by others, still caring about their opinions, still playing their game. True silence arises only when you kill that need, when you realize you owe no explanations and that truth exists, even if it's unspoken. The second silent weapon is observation. While others fill the space with words and explanations, you listen, not like someone waiting for their turn to talk, but like a hunter tracking prey. You pick up on fears hidden beneath their words, subtle contradictions, and insecurities masked as arrogance. You keep all this in mind, because if you choose to speak, your words will be precise and deliberate, like someone who understands the other person's emotional landscape perfectly. The third weapon is time. Learn to let silence linger. Pauses create tension, and tension is power. While the other person talks, waiting for your turn when a reaction fails to come, people experience an internal breakdown. The discomfort grows, and their minds start to fill the silence with assumptions, fears, and paranoia. Even a simple look from you, paired with quiet, can have a stronger effect than 10 carefully chosen sentences. The fourth tool, unpredictability. By mastering silence, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is feared because people cannot guess what you will do next. When they don't know what to expect, they lose control and become cautious, carefully weighing every word you say. You flip the usual flow of interaction, from reacting to becoming the center of gravity in the conversation. Here, silence is not emptiness, but pure control. However, don't mistake silence for passivity. Nature never favors weakness. The silence discussed here is active, charged with purpose and focus. You aren't holding back, you are preparing, selecting your moment, positioning yourself with a quiet strength that doesn't need to be shown to be felt. When the right moment arrives, when silence has already conveyed all it needs to, you can deliver a single sentence or a sharp comment. It ends the discussion, not because it's loud, but because it's true, profound, and undeniable. This leads us to a more sensitive topic. So far, we've explored using silence to win, but sometimes the challenge is not about winning, it's about emotional survival. Some people don't just debate with you, they manipulate and drain you, and without realizing it, you hand over your power. Daily, you are dominated without a word being spoken. This is where the darkest part of this journey begins, when silence stops being a strategy and becomes a silent scream from someone who has lost control of their life. In the next section, we will reveal this truth, how you might be used without knowing it. While you think you're avoiding conflict, others may be building their power on your silence. Nature already understood this. Is there anything more twisted than being silenced? It's being conditioned to believe that silence is your only option, that swallowing your anger, giving in during arguments, and avoiding conflict is maturity, that staying quiet means balance. But what if this is a trap? Often, this kind of silence isn't wisdom, it's disguised submission. Nature saw this clearly. What you call peace is often a domesticated surrender. Have you noticed how some people exploit your calmness, your willingness to listen, your efforts to avoid fights? They push their ideas, impose their will, take spaces that belong to you, and you let them. You tell yourself it's not worth the fight, that harmony matters more, that it's no big deal. But the truth is, you pay a high price for this false peace, and worse, you're being used by those who know you won't react. Nature spoke about the morality of slaves, a value system created by the weak to survive in a world ruled by the strong. It's a code of resignation, guilt, and being nice. An invisible rule that teaches you to erase yourself, to shrink, to conform, while still feeling good about it. But nature didn't write this for those who give up. It's for those who dare to break free, who see they're being used, and decide to stop living as their own captives. When you accept this kind of silence, the one that eats you from the inside, you surrender your power without even noticing. You let yourself be shaped by others' expectations. You stop being yourself and become what they want. Others expect you to conform, but this contradicts what nature truly calls the will to power. The real will to power isn't about shouting or controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. It means taking charge of your own story. It's about being silent, not out of fear, but because you owe nothing to anyone. The silence of submission must end. Instead, a new silence should rise, the silence of presence. This silence doesn't bend, it doesn't degrade, and it doesn't apologize for simply existing. It stands firm amidst chaos and changes the situation without a word. This is the silence nature respects, the silence of someone who has become their own master. But how do you reach this level? How do you move from being controlled to owning your presence? How do you shed herd morality and become a person who commands authority even when silent? The answer lies in the strongest figure in nature's philosophy, the Übermensch. We've mentioned him before, and now it's time to learn how to become one. In the next and final chapter, you'll discover what it takes to embody this new kind of human. Because the world doesn't need more talkers. It needs those who master silence and rule through it. We've arrived at the last point, and here's what I want you to understand clearly. Silence is not emptiness or a pause. True silence is pure presence and control. It shows you no longer react to the world. You shape it simply by existing. Nature never wrote its story for those who settle to survive. It wrote it for those who seek to rise above, who dare to remove the masks society forces upon them, even if it hurts. The silence of the Übermensch is not the silence of the oppressed or the fearful. It is the silence of a warrior who has already won before the fight begins. It is the calm of someone who no longer needs to prove anything because they know who they are and, more importantly, what they deserve. Now, think about your life. How many times have you stayed silent out of fear, guilt, or not wanting to cause trouble? How often have you let others decide for you, speak in your place, or trample over your truth? Enough, nature would say. Living this way betrays your very existence. Accepting that kind of silence is betraying yourself. Starting today, your silence must change. It must stop being a way to escape and become a quiet shout of authority, a boundary, a clear statement of who you are. Even if no one understands, it doesn't matter. Who you are doesn't need approval. It needs to be lived. And that takes courage. Do you have that courage? If so, comment below. I choose the silence. That commands respect. Not just so I know you made it this far, but so you publicly commit to this choice. Words hold power, even when speaking about silence. Don't stop here. The next video is essential. It will deepen what you've learned and take your thinking further. Watch it, not for me, but because you deserve to grow beyond this. Remember, the weak shout, the strong stay silent, and the wise know when to choose.